The worst incidents at theme parks are the ones that are so graphic that even medics can barely stand them. In such incidents, the body of the victim is badly deformed in such a horrific manner, no one can shake it out of their head. Ever. The worst ones that we've ever encountered so far involve gruesome decapitations that rattle the heart and soul. In others, people became disfigured beyond recognition as cruel machines just devoured them. Needless to say, if you're going to check in on some of these videos, we recommend that you mentally prepare yourself a little bit. We also recommend the same for today's video because the victim was decapitated. Her body was disfigured in a horrendous, heartbreaking manner. 48-year-old Dollie Regina Young at Fremont, California was not an ordinary woman. She was one of the early true Avon Ladies, a rare breed of woman who began door-to-door marketing and selling perfumes and cosmetic products in 1939 across the United States. She was the wife of John L. Young and had two sons, Derek and Dale. Since her early years, she was tough, respectable, and a hard-working woman with a respectable salary. She spent many years going door-to-door marketing and selling Avon products, which is to this day a tradition practiced by the Avon Corporation. Only that nowadays, classy women call the company to have one of the sales ladies swing by. Everyone liked Dollie. Even the neighborhood kids liked her for her kindness, her words of wisdom, and motherly chatter whenever she passed in the street. In early January of 1984, Dollie Regina was out for a day of fun with the girls. Some of them were old colleagues, and others were new, young Avon ladies, all visiting from Arizona. Since the ladies were visiting from another state, their natural choice that day was to get some thrills at none other than the world-famous Disneyland in Anaheim. The ladies went out for some lunch early in the afternoon, and a couple hours later, around 2:30 p.m., they arrived at Disneyland. They giggled, they laughed as they tried some of the rides, and by 3:30 p.m. it was time to try the infamous Matterhorn bobsled roller coaster, which is themed after a famous section of the Alps mountains located between Switzerland and Italy. The ride was originally not designed as a roller coaster by Walt Disney, who in 1956 envisioned it as an artificial mountain where people would go tobogganing inside of it and tunnels full of artificial snow. However, in 1959 it was converted into a roller coaster. The upper part of the mountain, which encompasses the roller coaster, even boasted a tunnel specifically made for the old Skyway gondola ride to pass through. This ride no longer exists. However, an upgraded version of the roller coaster still exists, and it's a big hit amongst Disneyland patrons. So, minutes after arriving at the ride, the group of girls sat in the coaster train, and their seatbelts were fastened and checked. Dollie sat in the back carriage, alone. And the thrill began. At this time, the Skyway gondola was going through the artificial mountain, and the gondola group of three from Idaho, a father and his two daughters, were enjoying the scene as they looked down at the roller coaster as it rocketed on the tracks. The coaster's bobsled-style carriage was halfway down the mountain when suddenly one of the two girls, Helen Pishner, on the gondola screamed, "Oh my God, someone fell out of that car!" Her father, Don, looked down, and there it was, Dollie Regina Young on the tracks trying to get up, looking in pain and disoriented. Don then saw the second train rocketing towards Dollie, who was still on the tracks. He quickly moved and he told his daughter to not look. Only seconds separated Dollie from the second train. Sadly, the staff and operators were still unaware that something had gone wrong. And additionally, Don and his daughters just had no time to scream for someone to help to stop the roller coaster. On the second incoming roller coaster, a family from Vancouver was sitting. They saw that something was blocking the way, but by the time the train arrived, it was just too late. So they sat there in a state of horror as the train sliced through Dollie's body and stopped right on top of her. I can only try to imagine the horror that Dollie had to endure. Not only had she just violently fallen off the roller coaster, but she had to endure the pain of seeing and hearing death coming her way, being 100% unable to move from injuries that she sustained during the fall. Sadly, she was decapitated, and part of her torso was disconnected from her body. There aren't words that can describe such a painful and terrifying heartbreak scene. I guess the silver lining here is that she instantly died. The roller coaster was automatically shut down because the system was designed to stop the ride if a train malfunctioned and stopped. Nevertheless, once again, it was just too late. The people on the gondola and in the train that hit Dollie began screaming, alerting the workers that something terrible had just happened. One of the workers went to the incident site quickly and just couldn't believe what they saw. He quickly led the family of the second carriage out and prevented other workers who rushed to the scene from even being able to see what happened, even burning that image into their retinas. Truly a considerate thing. Police and paramedics arrived in less than 30 minutes. They began deciphering the scene. The detectives quickly ruled out foul play and suicide. And so within 2 hours, it was obvious that something was wrong with the seatbelt where Dollie was sitting. The belt was open, which could only mean two things. Dollie never used it, or she opened it during the ride. The park argued that all passengers are seated and their safety belts are checked before the ride begins, and thus it was Dollie who removed it during the ride. Dollie's husband argued that Dollie was no child. She was a very careful woman. She was aware of the dangers, and it wasn't her first time on a roller coaster. So the police concluded that one of two things happened. Her seatbelt either malfunctioned and opened, or she was sitting on it, and the staff didn't ask her to put it on. Or she tried to stand during the ride and slipped through it. The detectives soon declared that it was an accident, and that there was no one to blame because only Dollie, who was gone, knew what really happened with the seatbelt. Within 24 hours of Dollie's death, the Matterhorn roller coaster was running again, as usual, as if nothing had happened. Disneyland officials simply said that the ride had been checked for malfunctions and they didn't find any. It was safe to operate. In February of 1984, a month after the incident, Young's husband John L. Young of Campbell and her two adult sons, Derek and Dale, filed a $5 million wrongful death lawsuit against Disney. The case dragged on for several years, but in 1988, merely days before the jury selection process was due to begin, Disneyland settled the case out of court for an undisclosed sum. This case made it obvious to many that Disneyland knew that something was wrong right from the beginning. The Young's family lawyer never argued that the seatbelt was broken, and the staff who were inspecting the seatbelts were busy checking out two beautiful young girls during inspecting Dollie's seatbelt. Additionally, the seatbelt wasn't taken as evidence by the police, and Disneyland changed all of the safety belts after the incident. The lawyers just didn't have a case. Their argument for the seatbelt replacement was weak since they alleged that the original manufacturer of the belts went out on business and the park had no choice but to use a different supplier. Additionally, Dollie was a wise and beloved woman who was known for being extra careful. There was no way that she would remove her seatbelt or stand up during the ride. The Youngs also sought permission from the court to show the bloody and graphic scene to get the judge to visit the ride and see the changes that were made after the incident. Additionally, Disneyland at the time was known for being quite obsessed with making money and not so much with safety. Disneyland was also the single most powerful force that played a role in removing governmental oversight of theme parks in 1981, paving the way for stationary amusement parks to self-regulate, to self-inspect, to report incidents to the state according to their terms. And I can't think of a more disgusting policy. That is a lie. There are more, but this one is still disgusting. In fact, there was a huge fiasco between Disney and the state of Florida in March 2023 over the level of government oversight of the amusement park operations. On the one hand, the state of Florida wants to regulate, among other things, the existing theme park and the second one that was due to be built. On the other hand, Disney wants to self-regulate, to self-inspect, and have zero government interference in their operations. And this battle led to a cancellation of a $1 billion Disneyland project in Florida. However, Universal announced that it'll proceed with building a new $1 billion theme park of epic proportions in Orlando. So far, it seems that Disney's lost the battle since Florida is a magnet for tourists and visitors from across the world, and they also did build a theme park there, so what do you think? Should theme parks, both traveling and stationary ones, become heavily regulated and inspected by a nationwide federal program that includes oversight? Or should they continue to operate on their own terms, based on each state's set of rules and laws? Let us know in the comment section down below, and thank you for watching. And please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit that bell icon.